This is Bioweapon Blues, episode 35. Title of this is going to be Normalizing Total Evil, as the murders are still continuing. Deaths are piling up. And really nothing's happening. The engines of the state should have already kind of kicked into gear to try to analyze and ameliorate the situation with the kill shot, but it hasn't happened. So I think that is kind of that slide down into total evil, where people are just going to accept all the murders and deaths and their children dying. So the child killers are still out there. Fauci, Gates, Biden, they're all there. But this was interesting. I'm going to start off a video, finish with some slides as usual. And this was a lady who ran into Fauci in a Georgetown coffee shop and flipped him off. It kind of tore up social media. And I briefly just talked to her just to verify it. But yeah, it's a real story. So she's selling pictures, and at least somebody has some courage. Woman has more courage than most men.
And we've got color prints, 8x10 framables. We've got the text I sent my husband the moment after I met Mr. Dr. Fauci there at Cafe Milano. And then I've got the original photograph taken by my dear friend and client, Greg Strauss. So we're signing these puppies up here at CPAC with my John Hancock and distributing them to the adoring masses. So if you want one, hit the DM. I will make sure that you get one. I will mail one to you, personalized, anyone you want. Perfect for that stocking stuffer or that person that you love that loves Dr. Fauci.
They rigged Medicare and Medicaid data, and the way they did that was with a hierarchical system. So they would come in and say, all right, well, we have competing diagnoses. However, if you put COVID as the first one and getting hit by the bus as the second one, we'll give you federal dollars. We'll incentivize that. And the numbers shake down the flu pneumonia diagnosis. And I'll have to check this figure. I think it's accurate. It was like a $3,000 federal, received $3,000 in federal funding. But for a COVID diagnosis, it went as high as $13,000. So you have a $10,000 discrepancy in federal funding based on a single diagnosis. And then if they applied a ventilator, it was another $39,000. And it just so happens that remdesivir and the ventilator are a part of the federal protocol. So they use this closed loop of propagation where they maintain control over the rules. They export those rules to other people like medical providers. And they compartmentalize the culpability of those actions with those medical providers. And then they receive back that data that is determined by the rules that they wrote. And then it is propagated by means of the CDC, the agencies that they outreach to, the mainstream media, the federal apparatus, etc. And I don't say this very often, but I say it all the time as it relates to COVID-19 and enterprise fraud. There is a 0% chance that we are wrong. Zero. There's not a chance in the world that this work is anything other than what we're saying it is. And so from the Medicaid and Medicare data to the NVSS diagnostic memos to the PCR test and the impact of cycle thresholds, these people, this criminal enterprise was literally able to manufacture an entire pandemic out of a chimeric virus that has 40,000 U.S. patent filings tied to it. And they just cooked up a bunch of data and sold the whole thing. And America went with it hook, line, and sinker.
That is Vigilant Fox, and 0% chance that we are wrong on the criminal enterprise. So it really is a criminal act. These are just mass murders, criminals. Got away with it.
Just a quick update.
This is a guy from England. I haven't verified this, but I think it's interesting what he's talking about. He's in Switzerland and seems to kind of be astute. Listen.
Some of the meetings that we've been having here, I know that many of you have been somewhat confused as to why it is that you yourself can understand the simple truth that a bioweapon was created by the deep state, that it was released in order to create fear and panic among populations, And then a toxic, lethal injection was really, entire populations were coerced into receiving this lethal injection, which of course has maimed millions of people around the world. And of course, earlier this week, I was able to brief you on the fact that people here in Switzerland are fully aware, especially the really old families, the people that really are the movers and shakers internationally around the world. They know now that their families have been poisoned. But many of you have written to me and you've said, but why is it that my friends can't see this? And although, many thousands and millions of people have woken up to this really rather awful fact of life, what we have to understand is that we were all subjected to a military-grade psyop, a form of hypnosis. It's like a weapon. It was designed, actually, this type of weaponry was designed to defeat ISIS, terrorist organizations. And this technology was then used against our own civilian populations in order to create fear and panic, and to use the words of Matt Hancock, to, scare the pants off of us, or whatever he said. So the fact of the matter is that there has been a military-grade psyop. People here are fully aware of it, and I think it's worth understanding that. And that's why some of your friends find it hard to see through that. They have yet to break through the hypnosis that they were subjected to.
That was John Mappin. And here is Jordan Peterson.
Beyond comprehension, in some fundamental sense, is that the Biden White House, for example, is essentially is acting as a shill for Pfizer constantly. The Biden White House tweets out around Christmas, for example, this became particularly egregious, these constant reminders that if you loved your children, you'd go have them both vaccinated and boosted. And by that time, it was absolutely clear to me, and I'd be more than happy to be corrected on this front, that the evidence that vaccinating children was a good idea was not only lacking, it was the best evidence was counter evidence, is that children were basically at zero risk for serious consequences, serious side effects from COVID. And the vaccines, in all likelihood, posed a greater threat to them than did the virus. And so I couldn't understand at all why the White House would be supporting the marketing efforts of the pharmaceutical companies. Now, there are tens of billions of dollars at stake here, and there is a revolving door. And people who are listening and watching, is my understanding is that there's something of a revolving door in Washington between powerful companies and the regulators who regulate them. Those regulatory bureaucratic positions aren't necessarily particularly well paid, and they don't last forever. And a lot of the people who occupy those positions are ambitious, and there's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But it's pretty damn useful to hire someone to work for you who was once involved in the regulation of your company, let's say. So there's plenty of moral hazard on that front. How do you understand the interplay, like the dynamic interplay between the public health officials, quote, who are there to protect us, and these entities operating behind the scenes who, do make products that are useful, but also have an iron in the fire that isn't necessarily completely aligned with everyone's best interests?
Yeah, so I think the idea is that in war, a lot is possible and ethically permitted that would not be permitted outside of war, right? So that the same kind of principle attack applies here. So what you have, for instance, in the U.S., that a former head of the FDA was actually on the board of Pfizer. He then is on national TV all the time, essentially pushing a line that benefited Pfizer and the sale of its products. Sometimes and often, in fact, without disclosing the fact that he has this conflict. So they're definitely, but that's long-standing. Like, you understand that those kinds of conflicts exist, and you're absolutely right. Like, the regulatory agencies, there is this people work for the regulatory agencies, and then they go work for the drug companies and come back, right? That's like the FDA, that's a major problem the FDA in the US faces. So that's completely understandable. What has to happen is policymakers, top policymakers, understand that dynamic and act against it. Instead, what happened was that the top policymakers said to themselves, certainly they acted this way, that kind of dynamic actually helps the public. Because what they're doing is putting forward a product that's going to rescue us from the pandemic. Yeah, you have a product that's this vaccine, and so it's okay. I mean, it's implicit. At least that's my interpretation of how people acted. Because otherwise, you would have had top policymakers and top public health officials decrying these conflicts of interest, this sort of revolving door, as you say.
So that was Professor Bhattacharya.
You just referenced intentional pandemics. Do you harbor any doubts about the origins of COVID-19?
No, the evidence is very clear that it's naturally caused.
No, he's lying. This is another evil ghoul liar. Should have been arrested a long time ago. Shouldn't even put him on TV. It's such a joke.
It's a bad virus, and we're going to have natural epidemics, and sadly we may have some unnatural epidemics in the future.
You just referenced...
Or this... That's why they keep gaslighting you. Stand up.
This is a former employee of Pfizer.
Be brave. Do something for this country, or else we're all doomed. Thank you.
A bad virus, and
I will tell you all that I'm not stopping. We're not giving up. O'Keefe tips at protonmail.com. And stay tuned.
Attack on a fundamental tenet of American democracy.
This is just an example of who's running your country. This is Merrick Garland claiming that 5 people died on J6 after they prosecuted 500 people, and they're not looking at the new exculpatory evidence of all the video that they hid, which to me is a Brady violation, meaning you helped keep information that the defense would need to argue in court against these people for 500 people, not 3 people, but for 500,000. Incredible. Total corruption, just gone. Normalization of evil. Sorry.
That power is peacefully transferred from one administration to another.
Yeah, that didn't happen. I mean, you can't look me in the eye and tell me Biden got 81 million votes. It's such a joke. It's just laughable.
Over 100 officers were assaulted on that day. 5 officers died. We have charged more than 1,000 people with their crimes on that day, and more than 500 have already been convicted. I think it's very clear what happened on
1,000 charged, 500 convicted. Wow.
January 6th.
It actually wasn't clear. If you had other video and other information, and people don't even know how many agent provocateurs there were there. And the government won't disclose that. So,
in fact, I'm going to share with you a very
this idiot. I just cannot listen to her talk.
cool story, which is that I went home one day and I said, "Well, why are conservatives bad, Mommy?" Because I thought we were supposed to conserve things. I couldn't reconcile it. Now I can. In fact,
We found just yesterday a tweet.
This is just a huge case. This censorship, this industrial level censorship that took place over the last 3 years is an abrogation of everybody's constitutional rights under the Bill of Rights. Nobody really seems to want to talk about that. It's unbelievable, but that's what happened.
The Virality Project at Stanford, which is partnered with a number of government agencies on Twitter, where they talked explicitly about censoring stories of true vaccine side effects and other true stories that they felt encouraged hesitancy. Now,
Censoring true.
yeah, so they used the word true 3 times in this email. And what's notable about this is that it reflects the fundamental misunderstanding of this whole disinformation complex, anti-disinformation complex. They believe that ordinary people can't handle difficult truths. And so they think that they need minders to separate out things that are controversial or difficult for them.
And that's totally contrary to what America's all about, I think. I'll just briefly add, this is very disturbing because what they're doing when they're putting these labels on there is they're actually also trying to discredit you. So it's not just, it's a form of censorship, but it's also a disinformation campaign.
Be held accountable. That's all these people. Fauci, George Soros, Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, all the poison pushing comrades, they need to be held accountable for their role in the greatest mass poison in human history. That's all these people.
I've spent my whole life in the media. My dad was in the media.
This is kind of like a strange mea culpa from somebody who works at Fox. I don't know what to think of this. This is like, wow, whatever.
That is a big part of the revelation that's changed my life is the media are part of the control apparatus. Like there's no, yeah, I know, because you're younger and smarter and you're
like, he just couldn't figure that out. He just realized that in mid-50s.
Yeah. But what if you're me and you spent your whole life in that world and to look around and all just, like, oh, wow. Not only are they part of the problem, but I spent most of my life being part of the problem, defending the Iraq War. Like, I actually did that. Can you imagine if you did that?
What do you think? What is one of your biggest regrets in your career?
Well, defending the Iraq War.
That is it?
Well, I've had a million regrets. Not being more skeptical, calling people names when I should have listened to what they were saying. Look, when someone makes a claim, there's only one question that's important at the very beginning, which is the claim true or not? So I say, you committed murder or you rigged the last election. Before you attack me as a crazy person for saying that, maybe you should explain whether you did it or not. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And for too long, I participated in the culture where I was like, anyone who thinks outside these pre-prescribed lanes is crazy, is a conspiracy theorist. And I just really regret that. I'm ashamed that I did that. And partly it was age, partly it was the world that I grew up in. So when you look at me and you're like, yeah, of course they're part of the means of control. I'm like, that's obvious to you because you're 28, but I just didn't see it at all. And I'm ashamed of that.
Isn't that what the media tries to do though?
It's their only purpose.
Right.
They're not here to inform you, really. Even on the big things that really matter, like the economy and war and COVID, and like things that really matter that will affect you. No, their job is not to inform you. They are working for the small group of people who actually run the world. They're their servants, they're their Praetorian Guard. And we should treat them with maximum contempt because they have earned it.
And then these are just these videos that are popping up all over the world. I've shown a number of them in the past, but people are starting to put the vaccine injured and dead in city centers. I believe this is Lyon in France, southern France, mid-France. I would recommend if you had anybody injured or murdered by the kill shot to do this, because I don't think there's any accurate aggregation of these stats. I think at least in the United States, they're clearly covering them up. That's what you pay your taxes for, is so the government can democide you, your family, your city, and then cover it up. There's a guy dropping dead in a soccer game. And this was just kind of a funny one. I wanted to add this, but it is like a guy on a breaking news in LA and just this skitzed out recording. Got to listen to it. I don't know.
Overhear the conversation just a bit earlier about what exactly the man was screaming about. I actually looked into these schizo posters, and I mean, I have to say, I am really not sure what I'm looking at here at all. Chris, I think visually they are very beautiful images, but there also seems to be quite a bit of concerning text laid over the artwork. Bruce, have you ever heard of the gateway process and the CIA's research into consciousness energy grids? Are you aware that this stuff is all real? I mean, the CIA actually conducted tests to determine...
Hey, Chris, let's try to keep this coverage on topic for our viewers for now. I'm sure that's all something we can get into later, but for now, I would just really appreciate it.
There we go. Check 1, 2. There we go. I'll switch over to my... This is interesting. There's an Austrian case that popped up that... This is written by Epimetheus. This is what the amendments to the international health regulations and the pandemic treaty will result in. Austria provides the template for what will come. The imposition of deadly measures born of ignorance, politics, and corruption. Recommend what politics and the medical association leadership wanted. It was never about expertise, about advice, about objective science, about health. And you can go to Metatron from Substack, and it's leaked documents show vaccine conspiracy in Austria. Thanks to German speakers' orderliness, we now have written proof of collaboration between government, doctors, and legacy media. Time for tribunals. This is literally hot off the presses from March 13th. Everything that I showed was pretty much early March 2023. This is literally hot off the presses. Austrian alternative media outlet Der Status published leaked documents from the Austrian Chamber of Physicians that show beyond reasonable doubt the grand conspiracy between government, the chamber, and its protagonists. Without much further ado, here's my translation. As always, emphases and bottom lines mine. Below text has been slightly edited for clarity. Scandal Medical Association ordered experts and doctors to recommend vaccination. The Austrian Medical Association, under the ousted Red President Zerkeris and its current president Steinhardt, worked closely with the health ministers for years, and in doing so betrayed the interest of doctors, to say nothing about the patients. Spring 2020 collaboration with the politicians commences. But secretly, an additional deal was also negotiated. It was literally agreed that clear blanket vaccination recommendations will be made via the National Immunization Consortium on the suitability of the various vaccines and their applicability, especially for our various high-risk groups. Explosive, the Minister of Health and the Austrian Medical Association leadership signed a contract in which they go over the head of the National Immunization Consortium, and they did so long before the injections were even available, to determine what the National Consortium recommends. So it sounds like the Minister of Health and the big heads there went over the top of everything. It was never about facts or truth. So then you have another scandal. So there are scandals in the UK, Switzerland, Germany, that I know of, Austria, the US, Argentina. They just have a lot of documentation and stuff like that of all what went down in Austria. Bottom lines, from time immemorial, we've all known that a man's or woman's price is about, in purely monetary terms, 30 pieces of silver, to say nothing about the amorality and, yes, cowardice of most physicians everywhere. The notion of buying off support has been well established in the US. Here, we're talking individual doctors who are paid handsomely for jabbing people. Let's do the math, shall we? Let's assume it takes 15 minutes to process an individual at a pop-up injection clinic or in a GP's private practice. Let's assume that physicians work on average 8 hours. That's 4 patients every hour times 8 hours, 3,200 euros per day if you do just that. Or if the average month has 4 work weeks, there'd be 64,000 euros per month. I bet that since the above MOU clearly states that these injections are to be brought up literally in every appointment with a patient, that the true incidence of jabs administered would be higher. Imagine, if you will, that the median monthly salary in Austria is somewhere in the ballpark of 3,000 euros before taxes. In other words, jabbing for a single day brings in more money before taxes than 40 hours of a more honest work does for literally half the working population. Talk about 30 pieces of silver, disgusting. Yet this isn't even the worst part of it. So it's governments by bureaucracy. I mean, I could read that whole thing. That just shows the corruption. It was set up. The entire system was like perverse incentives to kill people. That's the point. And this is interesting. Like, they haven't stopped. So Joseph Ladapo is the state surgeon general for Florida, who doesn't recommend people take the jabs. They went after him. They really attacked him. And not only that, but they signed a document going after him with just fake information. They've manipulated the VAERS reports. Walensky is a criminal. She knows that she has manipulated the VAERS reports. That was proven in this court case. She knows the public doesn't know anything because they control the media. I know that she faked the VAERS report. They're underreported. Now, the factor is huge. It's like over 10%, 10 times at least. So they had to sue to get that. So it was Aaron Siri, Children's Health Defense, I think, sued to get that. She hid that. She knew in 2021. So every time she goes on TV or writes this garbage, this is a terrible idea on her part. She must think she's totally immune. because it's not just her name that's on this document. It's Robert M. Califf, Commissioner, FDA. So it's her. She's a monster. She's a total monster. Wow. I mean, I don't want to read that. Maybe I'll just do a different show where I read this whole article, but it's truly incredible. It's truly incredible. This is the picture of the girl I featured in the video starting off. Flipped him off on behalf of millions of people across the globe. Best moment of my life. Like, she knows he's a monster. I'm surprised he even went out. It was Cafe Milano in Georgetown. Her name is Melissa. I think it's Lively is her last name. This is just kind of an interesting observation from somebody. It's hard to know who to root for in the Russia-Ukraine war when my own government bombs me, releases viruses on me, forces me to take deadly injections to keep my job, spies on me, and steals all my money. Yeah, that's well said. I'll repeat that again. It's hard to know who to root for in the Russia-Ukraine war when my own government bombs me, releases viruses on me, forces me to take deadly injections to keep my job, spies on me, and steals all my money. This is just like VAERS data is all fudged. It's just a flat joke. Yeah, it was Children's Health Defense that got the VAERS data. What they did, what this article that I'm showing is about, is that the FDA and CDA paid tens of millions of dollars to process VAERS reports. They couldn't process enough. They didn't have enough people to process that. It was incredible. They had so much data, they couldn't even process it on their own things. The contract was amended to process backlog reports filed through February 28th for an additional $21 million. The CDC also contracted Eagle Health Analytics to assist with the processing for an additional $6 million. So they had to pony up $27 extra million to process all the backlog reports at the CDC. No more proof that Walensky knows what's going on, unless she's just out of the loop. If she's out of the loop, she shouldn't be the head of the CDC. So there's real problems. You got to get her under oath and, depose her. She should be deposed immediately. Although the other financial information about the dollar amounts associated with contracts was redacted, Gutskow estimated that the CDC paid contractors at least $40 million over 2 years to process VAERS data. So that's how much data they had. Let's leave aside the 33,000 workers at the CDC and FDA you might expect to be deployed in an emergency. What is going on with VAERS reports? Excellent question. It looks to me like the lag time for reporting adverse events and deaths has shot up alarmingly. Those are your tax dollars at work, so they can't even process it. You have this huge government, total corruption in your face over and over again. That's just another thing. So they're lagging in the reports of what people are putting in there. Probably somebody caught them adjusting or manipulating them, like downsizing. I think the amount of, I can't remember what it was. This is Champagne Joshi, newly obtained 2,237-page Pfizer report obtained by I Can Decide, looking at dose-dependent toxicity in rats found in large spleens, enlarged adrenal glands, enlarged lymph nodes, kidney and liver congestion, increased fibrinogen. It was only a 6-week study. So they knew. They had documentation. They just went along with it. This is James Hill. The COVID operation aims to kill mainly Europeans, remove rights, take property. Kavashkov. A group controlling governments and media is deceiving the public, and they still do with 9/11, says Russian ex-military officer. Yeah, they're killing people off. The coronavirus needs to be considered as a global strategic special operation. Though these are command and staff exercises of the world's behind-the-scenes powers for controlling humanity and making people afraid. This is the goal of coronavirus. The aim is to stop people's movement around the world and to curtail political freedoms people are used to having, especially in Western Europe. They think there's too many of us ordinary people in the world. There should be around 100 million of their own kind and a maximum of 1 billion people on Earth to serve them. Then they'll be living in abundance on Earth. So the aim of the behind-the-scenes financial powers is reducing the world's population. The first attempt to take away rights from peoples happened on September 11th, 2001. Not too many seem to remember that after the so-called attack on the World Trade Center towers and Pentagon, the global war on terrorism was declared. Also was the beginning of the so-called Patriot Act, the Unpatriotic Act. They need another excuse for greater control and takeover of humanity. That's how they came up with COVID. Yeah, they did. Kavachkov says the current coronavirus pandemic operation serves four main purposes. 1, depopulation of certain groups, especially white people of European descent. 2, political control over the remaining population. 3, deflation of the current financial bubble. 4, liquidation of geoeconomic competitors. March 7th, Google searches for maternity clothes down 12 to 15% in the United States. Are people becoming infertile, or are maternity clothes going out of style? No, they're becoming infertile. Understanding redactions. This is from the Brooke Jackson case. Reveal information that would impair the application of state-of-the-art technology within a U.S. weapon system. So they call it a weapon system. Reveal information according to foreign government information that would cause serious harm by a foreign agenda. There's all kinds of problems in these court cases, documents and stuff like that. And the Army's involved. It's just a big fat mess. Essentially, you have a clown show where Pfizer defrauded the FDA ignored the fraud, then the DoD trusted the FDA's ignoring the fraud that compromised the quality of the prototype it contracted for. Pfizer still is the agency that committed the fraud, where the FDA and DoD have set Pfizer up to take the fall, even though all three were apparently in on it. The Department of Defense seemed to be caught up in a delusional fantasy with its medical countermeasure paradigm. This delusional fantasy has been enabled further by Pfizer's fraud and the FDA's dismissal of that fraud to fuel the DoD's delusional medical countermeasure development fantasy paradigm. It's just a total maze of like F-ups. This is Jicky Leaks. This is getting very dark very quickly. SV40 is a known oncogene causes cancer, and it appears that vials may have been deliberately contaminated. The heads of the regulators need to lawyer up PDQ. Yeah, this is from Kevin. He's quoting Kevin McKiernan. Sequencing of RNase-A-treated Pfizer bivalent vaccines reveals paired-end sequencing evidence of circular plasmids in an intervial 72 BP variation in the SV40 promoter. So they're giving you cancer. The shots are. It's incredible. Kevin McKernan, you can see him on Twitter. Part 3 of the PUC Around and Find Out tour. So they effed around. They're going to find out. And there's just so much to read. It's just a flood of criminality and corruption. It's really almost not even comprehensible. It's so vast. I can just read some of the stuff, but it's just, there's so many problems. They're all corrupt. They're all in on it. They're just pushing these things they don't need. Could have just taken vitamin D. There's a lot of people working on it. It's Sasha Latipova looking at things different than the people who think it's merely just corporate fraud. But it's more than that. It involves your government. It involves the government of the United States. Kyle Becker. German scientists prove COVID vaccine caused fatal brain injury and heart disease in patient. We can say definitively that this damage was caused by vaccine. So that's just one. They're not encouraged to kind of look into it, but Canadian Independent. Look, a new study on COVID-19 immunity that analyzed 65 different studies from 19 different countries found that the level of protection from past infection by variant and over time is at least equivalent, if not greater, than that provided by 2-dose mRNA. So infection is better than the vaccine. Go get infected, go get sick and beat it. Which is what they should have said from the beginning. They just malevolently con the public. This goes back to the Florida State Surgeon General. Latipo issues a health alert on COVID-19 vaccine safety. The alert points to safety signal concerns reported to VAERS. It shows a 1,700% increase in adverse events with a 4,400% increase in life-threatening conditions compared to historical vaccines. Incredible. Should have been stopped right away. We can just go over all this stuff. Jim Jordan's going after Zuckerberg and stuff like that, which is good because they're all in on it. Took away our constitutional rights. He's a monster. Mark Zuckerberg is totally evil. I mean, you're just like the children of hell. I'm not exaggerating. Jim Jordan, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, has subpoenaed the CEOs of big tech companies to hand over documents in what is alleged to be collusion with the federal government to suppress free speech. Illegal. Subpoenas were sent to Google, Amazon, Meta, Apple, and Microsoft. Clinical trials in the UK are down by 44%, primarily due to lack of participants. Why? Some people got smart. Public trust in pharma is vanishing. I don't trust anything. I don't even trust aspirin. I don't trust anything from these bums. They're scum. They've been poisoning people for decades, getting away with it. That's really kind of what happened with this shot, is they rolled it out in such a huge amount that I think it exposed that they've been just engaged in snake oil salesmanship for decades, just fixing papers and lying and hiding information. And they just probably thought they were going to get away with it. They just like, oh, well, this is what we always been doing. Let's just do it again. Incredible. 2 seismic C-19 events happened in the last 48 hours in Mexico and the U.S. as a result of the Steve Kirsch, Peter McCullough, Robert Malone presentation to the Mexican Senate. Mexico has decided to stop further procurement of COVID-19 injections. We're very close to the tipping point. That was Dr. Nathi Miladla. It's March 1st. Numbers for the first 18 months of the pandemic in the UK indicate that, excluding other killer conditions also present, 8 times more people died from injections than from C-19 itself. Wow. So the injections were killing. Catherine Watt, county level action in Florida. Last week, Joseph Sansone presented a ban the jab resolution to the Lee County, Florida Republican Party, and it passed with an 80 to 90% of the vote. The Lee County GOP has thus far been unable to issue a press release because the wire services are claiming it goes against CDC standards and incites fear. Wow. And then it's Joseph Sansone. Did we just start a revolution? I hope so, at least for the vaxes. These shots, kill shots. So there's a whole article about jab, ban the jab. Vigilant Fox talking about Naomi Wolf. The monsters at Pfizer recategorized miscarriages as resolved or recovered adverse events. Pfizer notes that miscarriages as serious adverse events with moderate or severe toxicity ratings. However, all of them were recategorized by Pfizer in the internal documents under the category of adverse events that were recovered or resolved. Like you had a problem when you had a baby. When you lost the baby, you recovered from that problem. It resolved the adverse event, the negative thing. The miscarriage is in the same category as a headache that went away. If you lost your baby, Pfizer said, your adverse event was recovered and resolved. So having a baby is the adverse event. So it's the negative incentives, the negative inversion. It's incredible. Incredible. Urgent stillbirths nearly doubled in Singapore, one of the world's most mRNA vaccinated countries in 2022. Meanwhile, live births plunged. The changes began March 2022, exactly 9 months after Singapore mass vaccinated people of childbearing age. It's like the Underground Railroad, trying to find pharmacies to dispense it. Ivermectin was difficult to prescribe and find from day one. A cheap, safe drug that's been in use for decades was suddenly unavailable. Yeah, I couldn't get it. My pharmacist wouldn't actually give me a prescription. I had to go online, and I had my prescription shipped to me from another city. That's how I got ivermectin. It's off the charts. So corrupt. Vigilant Fox, Joe Rogan wants to know what data was sourced to justify injecting babies and pregnant women. You can't take this when pregnant. You can't drink. You can't smoke. You can't this. You can't that. But you shouldn't take stem cells. There's so many different things. But yet with this vaccine, the zero testing on any pregnant people was fine and encouraged. Yeah, because they're trying to kill you. They're deliberately trying to kill you. Ethical skeptic, 1.1 million U.S. citizens, denial of treatment, factor V and sudden deaths, lockdown and disruption. A lesson for the ages on the stupidity which can be wrought in the name of science. So that's how many people he says died. 1.1 million U.S. citizens because of them. These so-called scientists, bombs. BC doctor Charles Hoff to face a disciplinary hearing for allegedly spreading COVID misinformation. Yeah, so they're still coming after people. Catherine Watt, key quotes from Pfizer's April 22nd, 2022 motion to dismiss and U.S. government's October 4th, 2022 statement of interest in support of something, I don't know. We don't need to know the origin of the SARS-CoV-2 virus to know the origin of the COVID-19 pandemic, right? The watchmaker argument in this document summarizes the evidence and implications of Dr. Anthony Fauci's scientific censorship, narrative control, and obstruction of justice upon the initial expansion and ultimate scale of the COVID-19 pandemic, and the collateral damage which was knowingly afflicted upon the American citizens he swore an oath to protect. Yeah, he's a criminal. He should be arrested. It's so crazy. Government's a joke. The law of enforcement's incredible. I mean, it's so strange. There's enough facts out there, guys. I mean, it probably would get worse if they subpoena all the documents, put him under deposition. What did he know when? No rest for the wicked. A podcast archive 100 hours of investigating the origin of whatever the global gaslight is. This is the COVID litigation lawyer directory. Please register here if you provide legal services to people who have been harmed by proponents of a safe and effective narrative. Steve Kirchmar, second. So there's a conference this week in Atlanta. Yeah, so all the lawyers should get on board. This is a way to feed your family, sue these people. Think about the tobacco litigation. This is a harmful product. They're not going to get away from a lot of these contracts. A lot of these contracts are going to fall apart under scrutiny. I promise you. Yafa Shiraz, Italy. Bergamo's chief prosecutor concluded its investigation into the management of the COVID pandemic, informs former PM Conti, Minister of Health Speranza, and others that they are accused of responsibility for committing serious crimes, including inflating the pandemic and mass killing. It's March 2nd. So Italy's on that too. So you can say Austria, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, UK, the US kind of grumbling. I mean, there's definitely something going on now that the Republicans are back in power. IT guy, this lines up with ethical skeptic, has been measuring and forecasting. Wow. Cancer incidence 4 to 5 times according to Israel's HMO. 4.5 to 5-fold incidence of cancer will be devastating. I've said many times cancer is a lagging indicator. Doesn't show in data until years later. Read here. Yeah, so it's a bioweapon, guys. They went after you with a bioweapon. Went after the public. Bill Gates arrest warrant issued in Philippines for premeditated murder linked to vaccine rollout. March 3rd, Peter Halligan. So the countries are getting angry. A Philippines court has issued an international arrest warrant for Bill Gates as part of an investigation into COVID-19 vaccination rollout in the territory. Excess deaths have spiked in the aftermath of the vaccination drive in the Philippines, with hundreds of thousands of citizens dying unnecessarily and many more injured and maimed, according to prosecutors. The judge said Gates, as the founder of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, is wanted in connection with hundreds of thousands of deaths, a number which cannot be estimated at present and is certain to increase exponentially in time. Apparently he can't set foot in India, too, for what he's done. Chief nerd, former Houston Methodist registered nurse Jennifer Bridges exposes the hospital's appalling behavior. I've seen text messages, I've seen emails where Methodist hospital threatened their doctors. You cannot sign medical exemptions. You cannot report adverse reactions to these vaccines. And then if you do, there were other people higher up to erase those. Those were not allowed to be on record, from Senator Ron Johnson's Senate hearing January 2022. It's incredible. That's probably the same across all the hospitals. So you had the people at the very top, probably in the system, just whether it's from the White House COVID task force, just forcing people to do whatever they wanted, just forcing it on them. It's just like a evil medical cartel. Incredible. Never thought I would see this. Nobody's ever seen it this bad. Because now it's coming out. Dr. William Mackus, MD, over 96 Canadian children ages 2 to 19 have died suddenly or unexpectedly in the past 3 months. A warning call for Canadian parents. It's just going to keep going. So they're child killers. All the people who did this, murdering kids. It's genocide, guys. Worst mass murder in American history, Anthony Fauci. Yeah, but he's part of a whole group. That's the whole thing. There has to be thousands of arrests. People keep talking about Nuremberg. This is something at first blush. It never happened in human history. Much like World War II. I mean, it's like an unprecedented event, death. But this is also something different. I mean, it has to be like Nuremberg, but it involves so many different components. I mean, I suppose the Holocaust did as well. There was or whatever, just the war machine. There was all kinds of people involved, people at the facilities, at the death camps, at the work labor camps, the political parties, the doctors. So it has to be taken apart into all of its components. What happened in the last 3 years has to be taken apart like they did in World War II, after the end of World War II. These are all your favorite celebrity sellouts who took money from Pfizer. John Legend, Martha Stewart, Charlie Puth, Pink, Questlove, and Michael Phelps. Just shooting the poison out. John Legend, this is 5 times August. Hi, John Legend, you pathetic big pharma weasel shill. I hope the check Pfizer paid you was worth all the side effects and deaths. People from your sellout commercial here. All that damage is on you now. History won't forget. No amnesty. This is from 2021. CDC director declares racism is a serious public health threat. You're a serious public health threat, Walensky. Theo Jordan writes, this is who Team Biden still has leading our pandemic response. That should tell you everything you need to know about the CDC and Team Biden. Why do you think the CDC's mask study showing no benefit in schools was sent to the White House and Randy Weingarten before the public? Total evil, man. Total evil. I can't believe Americans can take all this. Vernon Coleman, Hungry Broke Dead. Yep. It's March 2023, and this video is video 323. There are global people around who think the human race is going through a bad patch. The truth, of course, is that there have been no accidents and no coincidences. The reality is that some very, very bad people have manufactured a crisis to create a world government, and anyone who doesn't believe that must be an unbelievably ignorant and thick coincidence theorist. In this video, I'm going to explore and explain precisely what's going on in the world. If some of it seems far-fetched, remember that my predictions have been absolutely accurate since the beginning, and you can still view my old videos and read the transcripts of the ones which were banned, censored, or hacked into oblivion. Cowardly and obedient editors at YouTube banned anything of... Oh, sorry, I didn't read the rest. Vernon Coleman's worth listening to. This is Bill Gates' arrest warrant issued in Philippines for premeditated murder linked to vaccine rollout. Yep, so they want him. Are they ever going to explain the excess mortality data in Australia? Nope, probably not. They're going to try to put it under the rug. It's Dr. David Martin. Biden, Trudeau, Fauci, Barrick, Daszak, and others are named in this lawful hunt of arch criminals. Dr. Martin reminds us we must not waste our energy on irrelevant debates, but focus on criminal prosecutions. You have to have the prosecutions because it's also like a historiographical record. It's a history lesson, and you can get all the information, and it's well worth people's tax dollars to do it. No question. There should be massive criminal prosecutions, massive depositions, gathering all the evidence for all the murders they did. They've done just millions of people around the world have died. It's really kind of a new form of warfare. You're in a kind of, like I've always said, I've said that. I think it was Crawford who I've mentioned, 4th, 5th generation war. So you don't have that kind of, oh, there's this line and war and where you own this prop land and they own that. It's kind of 2-dimensional. No, it's not like that. It's like 3 or 4th dimensional warfare. Steve Kirsch, the simplest thing you can do to stop the COVID vaccines and end the corruption in Washington, D.C. I'm trying to get RFK Jr. to run for president. If you agree, yeah, well, good luck. They'll kill him too, just like they killed his whole family. JFK Jr., RFK. Don't get on an airplane. Don't go to any hotels. This is Matt Hancock. He was, I think, one of the administrators out of the UK. They got his texts. They're just incredible. We frightened the pants off of everyone with the new strain, but the complication is that Brexit is taking top line. When do we deploy the new variant? So, like, they're literally talking about deploying it or something. Like, are you deploying that? Or are you deploying the propaganda around that? Died suddenly. Why did Justin Bieber and Shawn Mendes both cancel their tours for mental health reasons? What is the real reason? Are they just lazy? They got freaking poisoned. Probably took the jab. Now published in the peer-reviewed scientific literature, the mRNA vaccines are neither safe nor effective, but outright dangerous. That's the Journal of Clinical and Experimental Immunology. Australian. Every health authority in the world should be warning the public about this. Why aren't they? Because they're bought and sold. Vigilant Fox, targeting kids. Pfizer is now offering MDs free Paxlovid to give to children down to the age of 12. Paxlovid has over 100 drug interactions, the most of any drug on the market. Protect your children. Dr. Elizabeth Mumper, everybody just be aware and protect your children. Don't take anything from Pfizer. Dr. Pierre Corey, the vaccine campaign has all the hallmarks of a military operation. If you look at a lot of the policies, it has military all over it, right down to ignoring the massive amounts of vaccine injuries and deaths. I think that's a very militaristic view. It's like sacrificing people for the greater good of this vaccine campaign, and it's quite terrifying. Yes. Attorney Renz Tom says he's done, never taking another vaccine again. They are now integrating mRNA into every vaccine out there. So you want to talk anti-vax? Here's anti-vax. Do not get any of them. There will not be another needle put in my arm, so help me God, for a vaccine if I have anything to say about it. They're not vaccines. I wouldn't take something that's shot. They're tinkering around. They actually did a test within a test within a test with this. They were delivering different batches, either intentionally or negligently. How can you trust anything? Oh, you say that's in there. Why is there metals and oxide, all this stuff? It's incredible. The Marisol. They're doing it with intent to harm. It was a lie. There was never a scientific consensus on lockdowns, masks, or the vaccine. Dr. Bhattacharya. What happened was a relatively small group, a cartel almost, of very powerful scientific bureaucrats took over the whole apparatus of science, at least as far as the public eye is concerned, dominated the media, dominated the message to politicians, and as a result, we had a catastrophic response to COVID. And we're going to be paying the costs of that for a very long time. That's correct. Tom Renz, don't think the globalists won't use a war to advance the Great Reset. No one knows what the crooks and what the Pentagon and intelligence community do. They spend billions of dollars with zero accountability. They're starting wars. They're creating diseases. They're doing all these things, and they're doing it with your tax money and no accountability or oversight. That's right. There's Jacinda Ardern. She got punted or whatever. Nobody has faith in her. She's clearly doing blow. Cokehead in office. New Zealand records biggest increase in registered deaths in 100 years. Russell Brand, the pandemic created at least 40 new big pharma billionaires. Pharmaceutical corporations like Moderna and Pfizer made $1,000 of profit every second from the COVID-19 vaccine. More than 2/3 of Congress received campaign funding from pharmaceutical companies in the 2020 election. Pfizer chairman Albert Bourla told Time magazine in July 2020 that this company was developing a COVID vaccine for the good of humanity, not for money. And of course, Pfizer made $100 billion in profit in 2022. And I'm querying, all I'm querying is this, Brand added. If you have an economic system in which pharmaceutical companies benefit hugely from medical emergencies, where a military-industrial complex benefits from war, where energy companies benefit from energy crisis, are you going to generate states of perpetual crisis? Yeah, yes you are. This is Debbie Bernal. I showed a video of her. Well, like James said, I was a little reluctant to come, she told the audience. At first, I was scared for my life. I was worried that I would end up in a body bag or in a car accident. Yeah, you should be. There was some kind of leak, like somebody leaked something from this kind of new entity. It was a classic example of administrative overthrow or weaponizing an office, this new technique they do where, you have something that functions and then you come in and scrape it out from the inside and turn it to your will. It's really incredible. That's what happened with Project Veritas, in my opinion. This Austrian review, Dr. Marty Makary, Fauci was behind the decision not to recognize natural immunity. He just decided that if you have circulating antibodies that neutralize the virus, they're antibodies the government does not recognize unless they were derived from the vaccine. It's really very scary. These shots cause all kinds of autoimmunity problems. Like, so if you're already immunized, then why take a vaccine? Well, he needs to make money. I understand that. That's what Fauci's thing is. Arrest Fauci immediately. Maybe the two top virologists in the United States, Dr. Michael Farzan and Dr. Gary from Tulane, told Dr. Fauci on his emergency call in January 2020, when he was scrambling soon after learning that the NIH was funding the lab. They both said that, they both were in on something. Vaccine disaster. This messenger RNA looks like it's permanent. They nucleoside analog caps actually enhance reverse transcriptase. This means that the code is even transcribed into your permanent DNA, then passed down from parent cells to daughter cells. From Macaulay, it's a disaster. This is Dennis Meadows, author of Limits to Growth by the Club of Rome. He says there will be 6 to 7 billion less people on the earth, either via limiting the number of children per family or the hard way. Sustainability to these people means they don't want the plebs to rise up when our betters are living their best lives while we exist in the metaverse from the comfort of our assigned dense urban dwelling within our assigned 15-minute city. Vaccine mole. Why aren't European officials worried about this now? If they are, why isn't von der Leyen calling for an urgent investigation? And that is the fact that there's just weekly deaths are up all over Europe. Paul Alexander, Peter Bregan, and Ginger Bregan for the win. Finally, this is being dealt with. The adults are in the house. Failed to help society. Question why. Bregan makes very solid points here. Malone, more than 3 years ago, knew that the mRNA technology was dangerous but stayed silent. Why? Interesting. They're litigating with each other. That's Paul Alexander. Malone was really at the front of all this stuff. Foul play with death certificates. Hospitals made record profits. Dr. Henry Ely. In Santa Clara County, California, and in Alameda County, California, they did a partial audit, and it lowered their COVID death certificates by 22 to 25%. Why? Because hospitals were counting everything they could as COVID. When they put COVID down, they get more money from it. Wow, it's just incredible. It's all the perverse incentives. That's from your government. It's from the Biden administration. I guess it has to be partially for Trump. Erin Brockovich plans town hall at East Palestine High School Friday. Then they called her a terrorist. Ohio law enforcement links Erin Brockovich to potential for special interest terrorism threat. Wow, that's chilling. Dr. James Thorpe, devastating impact of COVID mRNA technology gene injection vaccines on pregnancy outcomes and menstrual function. Significant increase in AE with all proportional reporting ratios. The COVID-19 gene-based inoculations produce a 57-fold increase in miscarriages, a 38-fold increase in stillbirth rates, and a 1,200-fold increase in menstrual abnormalities. Don't take it. And this is just more people like ramping up all the stuff, ramping up messaging, the fear, guilt factor, vital. Like they know they're manipulating the public. FLCCC, you can go and look at that protocol. I've mentioned it many times. If you listen to the Bioweapon Blues series from the beginning, I mentioned the FLCC protocol. You can go check that out. Get on it. Take ivermectin. There's all kinds of things you can take. NAC, which is like a precursor to glutathione, like an anti-inflammatory. There's a lot of people keep talking about pine needle tea. There's many ways that you can try to get back to health. The pushing of these experimental vaccines globally is the greatest violation of medical ethics in history. It is. Peter Halligan, global surveillance state will be here in a year. The next step happens next month through the World Health Organization. So they're trying to vote on that. And I don't want to give away any American sovereignty to anybody. I don't care. Certainly not the WHO. It's already proven itself corrupt. It's getting funding from Gates. So, he's just another kind of administrative infiltration or overthrow or weaponization. It's just sick. COVID mRNA gene injection vaccine causes myocarditis, pericarditis, and cardiovascular events. Yes, it does. If nothing went wrong at Wuhan lab, then why the obfuscations? Good question. Iceland leading all of Europe in excess mortality. Philippines sees record high in excess deaths. It's Mark Crispin. The U.S. DoD may have full control of C-19 mRNA injections in the U.S., but it does not control the rollout in other countries. Every health regulator globally has not verified that the doses being administered conform to the injections used in the clinical trials, not for contaminants of conformity, thawing, or metal pollutants, criminal negligence, or corruption, both. This is Sasha Latipova talking about Bregan. This is like all the teen suicides. Teen suicides due to the deliberate lies told by the UK government about COVID risk. Yeah, so they murder people through different things. Kyle Becker, Dr. Fauci threatened with prosecution in jail after bombshell report reveals he misled America on COVID origins. Yeah, he's already should have been arrested. Kanioka, Matt Hancock's WhatsApp messages show a plan to deploy a new variant to create fear among the public. The very next day, he pushed lockdowns. The new variant is out of control, he said. The cases, as you've seen from the graphs, have absolutely rocketed in the last few days. Given how much faster this new variant spreads, it will be very difficult to keep it under control until we have the vaccine rolled out. Wow. Peter Halligan, it's almost as if this is the plot line from a sci-fi novel. An alien species infesting the planet with nanoparticles prior to seeding it with the aliens' preferred life forms. Nanoparticle contamination cover-up. Important to interview with Dan Wigington. 40 million tons of medical nanoparticles and graphene oxide are being sprayed worldwide. Humans are nearly. Graphene oxide is also in the shots. This is just a list of all the people who got hurt. It's just off the charts. 16-year-old collapsed during basketball practice of cardiac arrest in January. The star defender had no prior medical conditions, had started seizing and went into cardiac arrest in front of the stunned crowd. He's a basketballer. He's fit. He's healthy. He's happy. And we never expected this could have happened. 37-year-old mother of two has been told she has just months to live after being told she has been diagnosed with lung, shoulder, spine, and pelvic cancer. She was told her cancer symptoms were just the side effects of her COVID vaccine before she was given just months to live. It probably is the side effects of her COVID vaccine. This is a guy who had like all kinds of surgery, jab injuries, Australia. You can check that out on Instagram. Emporia High 10th grader passes away. District offering grief support. Allison Hess died. They say the circumstances surrounding her death have not been revealed. I don't know. 40-year-old dad of four passed away unexpectedly last Friday while working out at an Orange Theory gym in Bozeman, Montana. The sheriff's office indicated it was a coronary event and he could not be resuscitated. Heartbreaking, 2 weeks after the Pfizer death shot, and a once healthy father is now on life support. Crimes against humanity, yes. I really don't understand why the vaxxed are so angry with the unvaccinated. They don't understand the freedom of choice. I'm vaccinated. Why aren't you, you stupid effing F? Anyway, rest in peace. And then he died. That guy died. This is a young guy, 40-year-old, passed away. Mark Crispin Miller, you can check out his Substack. He's really trying to keep tabs on how many people have died and individual stories from this kind of new mass murder. NFL player found dead at 35 during daily run. It's, Paul Duncan. Michael Heiser died, 60, died of cancer. It's fairly young. He got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer and then passed away. 38-year-old Shyam Yadav collapses while playing badminton, dies of a heart attack. Fully vaccinated lawyer died suddenly on Valentine's Day after getting a massage. Email was sent to me this week. I thought he died at home, but he actually died at their work. This is getting insane, you guys. Yeah, it is. This is like before and after the vax. Sarah. Santa Cruz musician dies, 38 years old. Francesca Kelly was a 50-year-old nurse from New York. In August of 2022, she announced the death of her 20-year-old son, who was a college student, Patrick Kelly. She states, "We believe it was the COVID vaccination." On February 5th, 2023, Francesca passed away too. So they both died. Wow. It's not a vaccine, man. It's a bioweapon. It's a kill shot. This father of two was told he had an ulcer. Cancer was listed on this poor man's medical records in November 2022, but nobody told the family. He died February 17th, 2023. He was told it was terminal less than a month before he died. This article was from today. They probably just called it that he died of cancer instead of the bioweapon. Because what it does is these spike proteins just go everywhere, then initiate kind of like an autoimmune response, and then your body's still producing them, and it can't handle itself, and then all these maladies pop up. I suspect they've tested this for years. I just heard Fauci said that, yeah, we've been testing this for 20 years to somebody. Well, I thought they just invented it actually for this thing. So there's some kind of conflict there, which is very important to understand. But they probably tested it somewhere, some military lab on unsuspecting people, and like, oh yeah, they die from like 20 different things. They don't all die right away. So it probably is confusing people. But the stats don't lie. And you can look at, I can't remember what's name, but they have the stats on working people. When you're working and you take the shots, you have a higher incidence of dying. It's off the charts. All right, that is Bioweapons 35 done. There's probably another 35 to do, which is really scary. Thanks for listening.